Are you ready, Stone Nation? Mantradamus.
Welcome to Beast the Odds. I am Mantradamus. It is Wednesday, August 14th. The month is almost over. It's going by quick, which means the football season's around the corner. Today, I am joined by the fantasy.football.analyst, Joey. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
Yeah,
sounds like fun.
We're going to have a great time. In today's episode, we're going over 3 running backs that I feel are going to bust your draft, but Joey likes these guys on your fantasy football team. So let's start with number 1 going by ADP. David Montgomery, he's number 45, so you're taking him in the 4th, 5th. You know, he might fall to the 6th, but he's really been going 4th, and that ADP has been rising. I saw him going round 3 in a draft earlier. Everyone's fallen in love with him. Joey, tell the people why they should draft David Montgomery.
So the biggest thing for me in Montgomery is the fact that he's a lot of what Matt Nagy is looking for in his running backs. Mainly a guy who can play all 3 downs. And I know Tariq Cohen is there. Tariq Cohen had that big season. But if you look at the workload that Jordan Howard was seeing early in the season, it kind of gives you an idea of what you can expect from a guy like Montgomery who's capable of playing that passing down role. He had, I believe it was over 70 catches in his 3 years in college. And, Jordan Howard averaged 68.7% of snaps and 21 touches a game in those first 3 games before Matt Nagy felt he wasn't a good fit as that 3-down back for the Bears. And then they kind of shifted over to Cohen, and that he really took off from there. So there is opportunity for Montgomery to have a big role on this team. And I know there's guys like people are worried about Mike Davis. But for me, Mike Davis is an insurance pick. He's a guy, so you go into the NFL draft, you're not guaranteed to get the guy you want. They don't go into the draft expecting to get Montgomery, especially because they're missing their first 2-round picks. So for the Bears, you need a backup plan. If they can't get Montgomery, they have Mike Davis who's capable of playing a similar role as well. So if the Bears never took Montgomery, I might be even having a similar feeling about Mike Davis going into the year, but that's just a little bit of why I really, really like Montgomery. If he's going in the 4th, 5th, if he reaches the 6th round, that's a huge steal for me. I mean, he's someone I've been targeting in the 4th round, late 3rd round even, and he's someone I'm really high on going into the season. I think he'll give you running back 2 value for sure.
Yeah.
But I'm curious, what is it that you don't like about David Montgomery?
Well, I will say that his days of going the 6th round are far over after his preseason game. And his preseason game was against like 2nd, 3rd stringers.
Yeah, and I never want to go like what I see off one preseason game. That's why I didn't even mention it. I mean, I like that he saw work in the passing game. Like, you can't look at the results. You kind of have to look at the volume he was given and the opportunities he had in the passing game. They were using him in the passing game, which I think is great. But I'm not looking at what he did and saying, like, oh, he did good his first preseason game, so you have to draft him. A lot of people are overreacting to that fact. So I'll agree with you on that, for sure.
The reason why David Montgomery is going to be a bust this year, you touched on it lightly. They have a 3-headed monster. Mike Davis, Tariq Cohen, and Montgomery. Mike Davis is a power running back. He can get those goal line carries. When he got to start with the Seahawks last year, I believe he had 120 yards and 1 touchdown. He might have even had 2 touchdowns in that game. Tariq Cohen, on the other hand, he's really just a 3rd down running back. A lot of hype. I believe he's a bust too. No one should be drafting him at all. We're on board with that. Well, I assume you are because you love Montgomery. But then there's Montgomery, who's almost like the hybrid between both those guys. But still, there's 3 mouths to feed. It's an offense that's scoring 20 points a game, 24 points a game. And when we get later in the year, it's going to be less because it gets really cold in Chicago. That offense is not explosive. You're spending a really high pick on a committee running back. I don't like the play. There's superstar wide receivers on the board. There's better running backs, in my opinion, with a better offense, more secure job. I'm not loving Montgomery. I feel he's a waste of a pick that high. They're too stacked at running back.
And I mean, look, like going back on the Mike Davis thing, I think a lot of teams do this. We saw this with the Browns last year, right? A lot of people worried about Nick Chubb's value going into the season. Obviously, he wasn't being drafted high in a ton of leagues. In some leagues, he wasn't being drafted at all. But the fact of the matter is, the Browns signed Carlos Hyde going into the season, ended up trading him away to Jacksonville, but Hyde was coming off a great season as well, right?
Correct.
So a lot of people were saying, "Oh, Hyde's there. There's no way Chubb's going to have value. There's no possible way." But it kind of goes off the insurance thing where the Browns don't know if they're going to get their guy in the draft. There was a lot of talk about potentially taking Saquon Barkley early in the draft. They ended up taking Baker, but they don't know if they're going to get Chubb going in. So they signed Hyde. That way they're secured at running back. And then once they were able to get Chubb, we saw Hyde be phased out and traded away to Jacksonville, and Chubb got the lead role. Now, obviously, they're not going to release or trade Mike Davis unless they can find really good value for him. But that's my feeling on Mike Davis personally. I don't think he's really going to have a role. I think he'll spell Montgomery for sure, but I don't see him having a big role on this offense. And I know what you're saying about him being that short yardage goal line back, and I'm sure he'll get a vulture or two. But I really think this is David Montgomery's job to lose. They spent high draft capital on him. They had to trade up to get him without any draft picks in the first 2 rounds. So that's just my feeling.
Hey,
Montgomery.
they didn't call it Run DMC when they got all those guys, Davis, Montgomery, Cohen. All 3 are going to have a role. I know it's the first preseason game, but Davis played all the first team snaps. I know that really doesn't matter that much. But Montgomery, it's just there's too many mouths to feed. The offense isn't productive enough. Only time will tell how it all plays out. Next up on our list, it's a running back for the New England Patriots. It's Sony Michel. His ADP is number 53, so that's a 5th, 6th round pick. That's firm. I'll go first on this one on why I don't like Sony, because he is a pretty popular choice. And after scoring 6 touchdowns last year with 931 yards on the ground, sure, there's upside there. The Patriots offense scores a lot of points. But let's look at a fact here. James White, he's definitely the pass-catching running back, no doubt about it. The Patriots are going pass-heavy. James White is going to get most of the plays. But the real X factor of them all is Rex Burkhead. Rex is healthy this season. He had 8 touchdowns, not this season, but the first season with the Patriots, he had 8 touchdowns. And when Rex came back late in the year and he was healthy during the playoffs, he even scored 2 touchdowns of his own against the Chiefs. The Patriots know Rex Burkhead can score touchdowns. That's what he does. And they're too stacked at running back. It's another 3-headed monster. You're spending a 5th, 6th round pick on a running back that's part of a committee. And if the Patriots go pass heavy, Michel's a running back 3, running back 4 at best in those matchups.
Okay, so there are some points I agree on, but mainly, honestly, I love the fact that you didn't bring up Damian Harris, right? Because Damian Harris is someone who I was talking about insurance with Mike Davis, but I'll just touch on Damian Harris. So Sony Michel is a guy who's obviously had a knee issue for a while. We all know this. He's had that bone on bone going into the league, and if he were to go down, the Patriots need someone who can step into that early down role. And although Rex Burkhead, like you said, he's a guy who's been reliable in the past, he's healthy now, but he's had injury issues. And when the Patriots brought him onto the team, it was because of his special teams ability. Rex Burkhead led the league in special team tackles the year before they signed him. And that was the same year they got rid of Brandon Bolden, I believe. Or it might have been the year before. I'm not exactly sure. But I know he was more of a depth pick. I saw you a little frantic, like, whoa, Rex
Burkhead scored 8 touchdowns. They got him to be part of this offense. He's their red zone running back. He knows what to do when they're near the goal line.
The thing about Burkhead is that my feeling is they originally added him onto the team because of his special teams performance, and then later he blossomed into this guy who can be that goal line back.
He can do it all. He can catch the ball. He can block. He's reliable. But keep going.
Keep going. Now, the thing about Sony Michel last year is he started the year injured, right? He didn't play preseason. He got into week 1. He was kind of eased in at first and didn't have the chance to kind of break him into the passing game. And that's something I've seen a couple reports that they're trying to do. And like you said, James White is the pass catching down. I'm 100% on board with that. If they're trailing in a game, James White is going to be the guy in the field. But the Patriots spent first-round draft capital on Sony Michel last year, and they drafted an offensive lineman with 2 first-round picks, something that's totally not expected from the Patriots. Usually every year it's like, oh, what defensive player can we get in the first round? And I'm a Patriots fan, so I'm used to. I was very surprised when they picked an offensive lineman and a running back. I mean, they're just very, very unexpected. And what that tells me is they have Tom Brady, who's aging. He's going to be 43 next year. He's still under contract. They just extended him. And I know they have the thing in the contract that he can opt out or whatever the case may be if he chooses to retire. But they lost Gronk. And Brady's aging. They need to preserve Brady for as long as possible. My feeling is they want to go more towards a run offense. Especially with drafting. Well, I mean, what does drafting an offensive lineman and a running back in the first round tell you? Right? This is a team that wants to rely more on the run heading forward. So if they're going to invest in that draft capital on a running back like Sony Michel, he needs to be able to play all 3 phases. Not all 3 phases. Sorry. He needs to be play on all 3 downs. He needs to be someone who can be reliable in the passing game. And going into the actual draft, Sony Michel was drawing comparisons to Alvin Kamara. A lot of people were, I don't know if you saw some of the reports, but he was being comped to Alvin Kamara for his pass catching abilities. He's a guy in college who was able to catch the ball. So I think in that early down role, he can see if he can get some passing opportunities, it can bring up his value. And like you said about Rex Burkhead, but what happened during the playoffs last year? Rex Burkhead was there during the playoffs in the Super Bowl, but Sony Michel ran crazy during that time.
Still, Burkhead did steal 2 touchdowns in that game against the Chiefs. And on top of that, as long as James White is healthy, James White's always going to be ahead of Michel when they're passing the ball heavy. If Brady's going shotgun because a big pass rush is coming that week, then James White's going to be the running back more often than not. It's just, I understand, Michel is a great talent when he's healthy. He's battling knee injuries now. Damian Harris, not really a factor as long as those other 3 guys are healthy. He's more of just insurance if Michel's knee's out. And even with Michel, you're taking him in the 5th, 6th round, and he's got knee issues already. He's got 2 running backs that could play just as much as he can with another one waiting. It's just way too high of a draft pick. There's game changers in that draft, in that range.
So if you're taking a running back in the 5th, 6th round, who are you looking at over Michel?
Well, the draft guide, which, I have people pay for, you can use any of the promo codes above. Okay. But I will say this, I'm pointing to actual things that I'm looking at. Yeah. You're just pointing to the sky trying to hope for a miracle. But right now, I'll name drop one guy that's part of the draft guide. I name dropped him earlier as a must draft. He's going the 6th, 7th, 8th round. You ready for it? Latavius Murray. He is way more reliable than Sony Michel. He's going to get more touchdowns, and he's a better player. Latavius has been underestimated his entire career. Mark Ingram's gone. Kamara's going to get some short yardage situations, but there's going to be a lot of touchdowns for the Saints. They've led the NFL in rushing touchdowns the last 2 years. Latavius is going to get his. He's a much better pick than Sony Michel, and he goes 1 or 2 or 3 rounds later.
I mean, I agree that Murray can be a value, especially if you can get him. I've seen him going in like the 8th round.
Yeah.
In some leagues. So I definitely agree that Latavius Murray can be a value. It just really boils down to how much work they give Alvin Kamara, and I know he's falling into that Mark Ingram role, but we'll see. We'll see how that goes for Latavius Murray. Definitely an interesting guy.
We'll come back. Let's do a little wager on it. Every week of the season, whoever is right, whoever is wrong has to give a shout out to their audience. We can do this show once a week, and you can give shout outs, to your people about Latavius beating Sony Michel. We good with that?
Sounds good.
All right, let's keep it going. The last running back on this list last year is a highly touted rookie. Did not really perform. 419 yards, 2 touchdowns. He's behind Chris Carson. We're talking about Rashaad Penny. He is going pick number 76, so 7th, 8th, maybe the 9th round he slips. Tell the people why you want them to draft Rashaad Penny this season.
I don't know why you wouldn't want to. In the 7th, 8th, you said possibly even 9th round. I mean, the amount of touches that opened up with Mike Davis being gone. I mean, that's almost 150 touches that are to go around, and you have in front of him Chris Carson, who look like if Chris Carson is healthy for the whole entire season, I'm not as interested in Rashaad Penny. But Chris Carson is someone who's dealt with a ton of injuries over his career, and a big reason for that is his running style. I mean, this is a guy who's going to fight for every single yard. He welcomes contact, and it causes him to get hurt a lot more than he should. Last year, he only missed 2 games, but you wouldn't really know it based on how much he got injured. He had a broken ankle in 2017, a dislocated finger, a hip injury. That hip injury reoccurred with the thigh injury. He had a groin injury, and he even had issues in college, which causes him to fall to the 7th round in the NFL draft, the year he was drafted. So there's a lot. And look, like I said, if Chris Carson's healthy the whole year, I like Chris Carson a ton. But Brian Schottenheimer keeps saying that they want to keep that run-heavy offense going. I'm sure they're going to pass a little more than they did last year, but they want to keep this run-heavy offense the same as it is. And Penny can return 7th, 8th round value as the RB1B in this offense, and he can see more work in the passing game. So there's a lot to like about Penny, especially in the 7th, 8th round with the running backs over there. I know you talked about Latavius Murray before, but it's kind of slim pickings for, let's say if you went like 3 wide receivers in the early rounds and you're looking for that 4th or that 3rd running back in your team. I think Penny is a guy with upside, especially if Chris Carson goes down, who can offer high RB2 upside if Carson went down.
I understand your points about Carson being injury prone. He tore his ACL a couple of years ago. This past season, he had off-season knee surgery. They're calling it a cleanup, more or less. But if there's one thing that's evident, it's that Chris Carson is definitely a better running back than Penny. So as long as Carson is healthy going into that week, to me, Penny's not even startable. He's a running back 4 at best. Yes, Mike Davis is gone. They got CJ Prosise and JD McKissick through the phone as the backups. I know those guys are definitely a lesser version of Rashaad Penny. But still, Penny has not really shown that he's a superstar running back. Last game, he had one breakout game of 108 yards, a touchdown on 12 carries. But besides that, he only caught 9 passes last season, which is extremely low considering that he can do that. Seahawks they don't trust him that much. They haven't shown enough into him. And like I said, as long as Carson's healthy, Penny's worthless. There's valuable players going in that 7th, 8th, 9th round that can really make an impact on your team. And Penny, to me, I believe Latavius Murray goes after Penny in the ADP. It's like neck and neck. And to me, it's a night and day difference on what you're going to get between Latavius and Penny.
So for me, I mean, like you said, Penny caught 9 catches last year. He averaged about 20 snaps per game last year, which was not good at all. Last year, he couldn't really return much value. But and I mean, last year he went into the rookie season and I think he had a broken finger. So that kind of hindered him early on. He didn't get to play in preseason. He was thrown into the actual season, still dealing with a finger injury for a couple weeks. And then Mike Davis kind of stole the show from there. So he didn't have a lot of opportunity to grow in that first year. He has a lot of opportunity now to reflect on what happened. But the matter of the fact is, he's healthy now. He's feeling better than ever. He's got a lot of opportunity with Mike Davis out of the picture. And also, Penny had 12 targets, right? And that may not sound like a lot.
For the entire season, just to be clear, 12 targets for the entire year.
Yeah. For the entire season. But he played a lot. He played 272 less snaps than Chris Carson. So that's almost 300 less snaps on the field. And that's only 12 less targets. So, I mean, Carson had 24 targets. And it boils down to, I believe, Penny was targeted on like 6% of snaps and Carson was at like 5, so it's not a huge difference on paper, but matter of the fact is when he's on the field, he's being targeted more than Carson was.
But 12 targets through an entire year, I mean, that's less than one target a game.
Well, of course.
Yeah,
well,
so.
Of course. But when you look at 20% of snaps, you have to assume that's going to go up. Especially with Mike Davis out of the picture, you know that's going to go up.
It's going to help, but as long as Carson is healthy, Penny is not even... He's like a waiver wire player. You're just waiting for Carson to go down until Penny can have any impact at all for your fantasy squad. And you're spending a top, 7th, 8th round pick on this guy. Latavius Murray to me is lights out, a whole nother dimension better than Penny. You want to double down on that one as well?
If we're in a PPR, I will, but listen to this. Ready?
I'm ready.
Mike Davis, ready? He had a game of 28.4 points, 15.5 points, 17.7, 18. He had another game of 16.4 or 13.6. And this is all in a three-headed backfield last year.
Okay.
Right? I mean, now you have Penny coming in with no more Mike Davis. And Penny, even last year, like you said, he had week 10, he had the one game with 16 points. Week 13, he had 12 points. Yeah, that's fine. But there's a lot of opportunity for, even with Carson leading this backfield, for Penny to get his share of touches. And he could finish as like a reliable running back 3, I believe. So, and look, I'll give you the edge on Murray only because I think Murray is going to be a guy that kind of under the radar finishes with like 10 rushing touchdowns. He's going to be one of those guys you look back in the season like, when did this guy score 10 rushing touchdowns? Like, I don't even remember seeing this happen. Like, you just remember Alvin Kamara going off the whole year and then Latavius Murray heading onto the field in those short yardage situations. So I'll give you the edge on that. But I really do like Penny, and especially if Carson gets injured, I think Penny can be great value in the 7th, 8th, 9th round, if you're talking about. So I'll double down on that.
And then I'm going to put a triple down on top of everything. You ready? Latavius Murray is going to have more touchdowns than Penny, Michel, and Montgomery combined.
Oh, I'll triple down on that for sure.
Triple down. And then the last thing before we end this. So we went hard in the paint on Mike Davis. It's almost like you convinced yourself Mike Davis is a good running back. Are you still loving David Montgomery? You still loving him after all this? All right, so you're not scared? Because Tariq Cohen's going to get his third down work. He's like a fan favorite. Everyone loves Tariq in Chicago.
Yeah, I know he is a fan favorite, and that's one of the only reasons he's still relevant. The fact that he's such a fan favorite.
Yeah, I mean, if we're talking about the bust of all busts, I believe his ADP is like 61 in that range, and that's just throwing away a pick right there. Throwing away.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of Cohen at all.
Okay, well, that is Beast the Odds. We were joined by the fantasy.football analyst. Do you want to do any last shout out or anything you want to say before we exit the show?
Well, if you guys aren't following me, I'm on mainly Instagram, so just follow me at fantasy.football.analyst. Thank you once again for having me. This was a ton of fun. I like how we kind of knocked everything out real quick, short little episode, but it went really, really well. So thanks for having me on. Hopefully we can do this more in the future.
Without a doubt. Joey, thank you for being here, and thank you all for watching Beast the Odds. You can get the preseason draft guide free. Let's do both fingers. Just use the promo codes above for Play Draft and Monkey Night Fight. Thank you for joining me, Joey. We'll do this again soon, and Beast.